Imagine you've just landed in a foreign country. You don't know anyone and you don't speak the language. You turn on your phone only to discover that you have no cell phone service and no access to the internet. In this video, I'm going to talk about the steps my wife and I took to ensure that this wouldn't happen to us when we embarked upon our full-time travel journey. I'll also talk about how it's exactly what happened to us when we landed in Brazil. And if you stick around, I'll show you the menu item hidden deep within your iPhone that can prevent your digital eSIM from allowing you to access the internet. My name is Rick, and this is Finding My Retirement. If you travel a lot, you know how important it is to have reliable cell and data coverage. And so I guess the first thing to do is talk a little bit about our cell phones, because we don't really typically think about it as Americans. We usually have a cell plan from one of the big carriers, Verizon, T-Mobile, or AT&T. We make phone calls and we use the internet and it's all great, and we pay a fee for a monthly plan. But in reality, our cell phones do two very distinct things. The first thing they do is they make and receive phone calls. They act as a telephone. But that service is separate and distinct from acting essentially as a computer, using data and being on the internet. So our typical American cell phone plans combine those two things into one plan that gives you both, usually unlimited minutes and unlimited data, or maybe some capped data. But in any event, you've got one contract, one plan, one bill every month that provides both your cellular telephone service and your cellular data plan. But in reality, most modern cell phones, and certainly iPhones, the two services can be separated. And that's one of the keys to unlocking how to have good cell coverage overseas without paying a fortune, is to figure out what you need for the cell phone portion of it and what you need for the cellular data portion of your plan. To separate those out into two separate SIM cards that are now basically digital SIM cards. We used to have the little physical card that you would pull out of your phone and put the different one in when you got to a different country, but now you can use a digital eSIM card, and you can have multiple eSIM cards operational on your phone at the same time. So when I started looking into how this would work overseas, the first thing I thought about is, am I willing to give up my US phone number? One of the things people can do, and do often do, is to park their phone number with a service that will charge you just a few dollars a month and will hold your US phone number. You won't be able to make or receive phone calls, you won't be able to use any data, but you will continue to essentially own that number, so you can come back to it when you're in the United States and reactivate it and not lose your phone number. While that may work for some people, it really wasn't an option for me. I have had the same cell phone number since I got a cell phone in the mid-1990s, and was not willing to just let that go and to tell everyone I know and everyone I've known for 30 years that they have to now learn a new number, and even worse, potentially learn a new number every time I switch countries and get a new local data plan. So the first job was to figure out how to keep my US phone number and keep it operational. Doing the research for that, the first game became, do you just keep a typical US cell phone plan, which is what I've done in the past. I had Verizon pretty much my entire life, and when we'd go on occasional vacations, if I felt like I needed a cell phone plan overseas, I would just turn on the Verizon International coverage, and they would charge me $10 a day whenever I needed my phone, and it worked perfectly fine. The problem is it costs $10 a day. When you transition to full-time travel, $10 a day sounds an awful lot like $300 a month and $3,600 a year. And that's just for the international portion of the plan. That doesn't count the $50 or $80 or $100 you're already spending monthly for your basic Verizon plan or AT&T plan. So the sort of way I'd done it in the past was obviously a non-starter. And so then the question is, what do you do next? And I started looking at some of these secondary cell carriers in the US that essentially don't have their own infrastructure, but piggyback on top of the infrastructure on one of the big three companies. These are companies like Mint Mobile. Any of those plans that you see advertised on TV, they're the sort of the low-cost carriers. Those plans typically involve a company that is essentially leasing space or bandwidth from either Verizon or AT&T or T-Mobile, using their services without providing all of that infrastructure. And you see the advertisements for $15 a month. There are some limitations with those types of plans in that they are often secondary data carriers, meaning that when the network gets busy, T-Mobile will prioritize its own customers ahead of the customers in these other carriers that are essentially piggybacking on that service. And so the term they use is that your service may be deprioritized, which means you're essentially getting your data slowed down or cut off completely at times of congestion. But still, they are an option. And I started looking into those and doing research and saw that several people that were doing what I am now doing were recommending trying a company called Tello, which frankly I had never heard of until I started doing my research. But it turns out it's another one of these companies that piggybacks on another carrier. In this case, Tello piggybacks on T-Mobile. So when you are in the United States using a Tello plan for data and cell calls, you are using the T-Mobile infrastructure. So if you're in a location that has good T-Mobile coverage, Tello should work just fine. If you're in a location that does not have T-Mobile coverage, Tello won't work either. So that was the initial step, and it is a lot less expensive. We switched over a few months ago from Verizon to Tello, and for a full, in the United States, unlimited data, unlimited minutes plan, it $25 per line. So my wife and I moved over to Tello while we were still in the US. We transferred our number from Verizon over to Tello. It's frankly a fairly simple process. Once you have your Tello account open and your plan started, Tello will assign you a new phone number that you can use temporarily, but then you can go through a process of what they call porting your number from the old carrier over to Tello. You have to go to your carrier, get a PIN code, and then fill in information with Tello about your carrier and your account number and the PIN code. And then Tello will reach out to that carrier and request the transfer of your phone line from the carrier over to Tello. So that all worked pretty well, and we had all 4 of our phone lines transferred over to Tello, and it generally worked pretty well. There is I think it's 50 gigabytes a month of data caps, after which it severely throttles your data. So we did have a couple of problems there, particularly with my son, who uses an awful lot of data. It's not a problem if you have a reliable Wi-Fi connection most of the time, but if you're using mobile data and not on Wi-Fi, you can eat through your 50 gigabytes and then everything gets real slow unless you buy additional data. But for day in and day out use, if you're someone who has good Wi-Fi at home and is not consuming huge amounts of data outside of their Wi-Fi coverage, 50 gigabytes is more than enough to get you through the month. And the service was pretty reliable. We liked it. But that really wasn't the whole issue. The next question is, so what happens when we go overseas? And what happens when you go overseas is there is no T-Mobile, and Tello's cellular coverage doesn't work, and Tello's data plan doesn't work. And so if you keep paying $25 a month, you really aren't getting anything, with one important caveat, and this is kind of the key to making this all work, is Tello will still work for Wi-Fi calling, or at least it should still work for Wi-Fi calling overseas. And even more interestingly, as long as you have an international data plan with another company and you have a data connection, Tello should treat that data connection as if you're on Wi-Fi. So you should still be able to essentially make Wi-Fi calls using your Tello line, which is your normal US phone number, overseas, as long as you're on Wi-Fi overseas or have an international data plan overseas with a good connection. So that was the key to that, and you can downgrade your Tello plan to, I think it's $5 or $6 a month. You just need a bare minimum plan, but that gives us a phone number with our US number that in theory can make and receive phone calls overseas anywhere in the world, as long as we are either A, connected to Wi-Fi, or B, have a data connection internationally. So then the next question is, how do you get the international data? And there are lots of ways to do that. The traditional way you would do that is you would land at an airport and find the little kiosk to get data plans, and you would purchase an international SIM card for the country of your choice. You land, for example, like we did in Brazil, and you find the kiosk and you buy a SIM card that goes into your phone with a certain amount of data that lasts a certain amount of time. So maybe you'd buy 10 gigabytes of data for a week if you're going to be in the country for a week. And then that gives you data and sometimes a local phone number, but for our purposes, we don't care much about the local phone number. What we care about is getting that international data. In recent years, modern cell phones have kind of moved away from physical SIM cards and now do what they call eSIM cards. It's a digital SIM card which you can download online. Again, you can do this in the country when you land. You can go to a booth or a kiosk and they will help you purchase an eSIM for the country you are in with a certain amount of data for a certain amount of time. That is almost certainly the cheapest way to go, but it means every time you get off the plane, one, you don't have any data connection until you find a place to buy some, and two, you have to spend the time and the energy finding a place to buy some. So the other way to do it is to use a digital eSIM company that has an app. There are a number of them. Some of the big ones are Airalo, Holafly, Cellular. There are a lot more of them. I researched them, and it just so happened when I was doing my research into Holafly that they were starting a new global data plan, which is actually good anywhere in the world or almost anywhere in the world, pretty much any country we might go to in the world, and you pay a certain amount for an entire year and then you get data. It's a monthly plan, but if you pay by the year you get a pretty significant discount. So I looked into it. It looked like it would probably work. They were running a promotion, I think because they were just starting the service, and by paying annually you got a deal. It was, I think, around $600 for the year. I was able to find a referral code that got me another small discount, and I think when all was said and done it was about $550 for an unlimited data plan with, importantly, unlimited hotspot usage. And this was sort of the other key to this Holafly plan. A lot of the eSIM companies either don't allow hotspot or only allow limited data through hotspot. So essentially, if you are a couple with two of you with two phones, you basically need two separate data plans, one for each person. Well, in theory, with the Holafly plan, I can have an unlimited data plan with unlimited hotspot. My wife can connect to my phone whenever we are out and about and therefore have data herself using my plan. And then when we're in our Airbnb or hotel, we will presumably have Wi-Fi almost everywhere. So that's the plan. It seems good. There are a couple of wrinkles to it. One, obviously, if my wife goes out on her own. The other issue I had and the other concern I had is what happens if I land in my first country and turn on my Holafly app and nothing happens. I have no data. So that prompted me to think, let's go with kind of a belt and suspenders solution. So we went back to Airalo, and my wife purchased a global eSIM through Airalo for a year. It's a 20 gigabyte plan. It was $58 for the year, and that was intended to do two things. One, it was kind of our emergency backup. If Holafly doesn't work, hopefully Airalo does, and vice versa. It puts two different plans on our phones. So again, if something happens to one, hopefully the other works. It also provides backup data for my wife if she decides to wander off on her own without me and needs data for some reason. So that was the plan. It works out to about $50 a month, plus the $10 a month for the Tello plans, $5 for each of us. We're paying about $60 a month for our phone plans now. Is that the cheapest way to get phone service and data overseas? Absolutely not. There are a lot of cheaper ways to do it, including getting individual plans in every country, including getting limited data plans. Even Holafly has two options, what they call, I think, the light plan. I will put a link or some pictures over the screen, hopefully, to show you what these are, but they have the unlimited plan and the light plan. I think the light plan was about $12 a month less, but it has limited data and limited hotspot capabilities. That's sort of the plan going in. It all seemed very good. We also took some other steps to try to help ensure we didn't get too stuck. We downloaded both Portuguese and Spanish language dictionaries to Google Translate and the Apple Translate apps, so we would have those and should be able to use them offline even if we don't have data. We downloaded on Google Maps the maps for Rio de Janeiro, Montevideo, Buenos Aires, Santiago, Chile, and Cuenca, Ecuador, which are our main stops down in South America. So again, if we don't have data available, we should still be able to use Google Maps, should still be able to navigate. And with all of that done, we hopped on a plane about 10 days ago. We landed first in Sao Paulo and had absolutely no data whatsoever. We got back on the plane, flew the hour or so to Rio de Janeiro, and landed in Rio de Janeiro and got to the airport and turned on the phone, and nothing. We had bars. I had bars that looked like I had data, but no data at all. Could not get it to work. Don't know why it wasn't working. It was showing I had signal. And this was a problem because one of the things I had read about Rio de Janeiro is you really should try to avoid taking a taxi, because unless you speak Portuguese, you can have a language problem, but more importantly, apparently the taxi drivers are notorious for taking you the wrong way, especially if they think you are a tourist and you don't know what you're going to spend, and then they might only accept cash and you may not have enough cash. So all in all, the strong recommendation was to use Uber, which is all well and good, except that if you have no data, you can't use the Uber app. So this is the point where I was getting pretty frustrated. We were exhausted. We'd been traveling the better part of 20 hours, and I just wanted to get to our Airbnb. After a little while of fighting with it, we decided to go with the emergency backup plan. My wife turned on her Airalo eSIM, and lo and behold, she immediately had a data connection. She opened up her Uber app, booked us a ride. We hopped in the Uber and quickly got to where we were going without any problem. So that was good. So glad we had a backup plan, but I had no idea why the Holafly plan was not working. A couple of points along our ride, I suddenly had a 5G signal on my phone, and I did get data, and then it would disappear. We got to the Airbnb. I tried to chat with Holafly. Didn't really work. They made a few suggestions, but basically said, well, you may be somewhere that doesn't have good service. That might have seemed reasonable, but Holafly worked fine on my wife's phone, so I was pretty sure that wasn't the problem. In any event, we spent 5 days in Rio. It never worked correctly. I would get data for a little while and then lose data, and when I needed it, I didn't have it. It wasn't a deal killer, it wasn't horrible, but it was frustrating, and it clearly wasn't working the way it was supposed to work. So 5 days later, we hop on a plane for Montevideo, and I think, well, we had other issues in Brazil with our internet and our VPN and things generally just not working and things being blocked. And so maybe it was a Brazil issue with Holafly. And so I was optimistic that when we got to Montevideo that we could get things working. But absolutely no data connection at all. Nothing worked. Could not access the Uber app. At this point I'm pretty frustrated, but we just wanted to get to our Airbnb. So again, we used my wife's Airalo plan. We managed to get to where we were going, but it was not ideal to say the least. And I was perfectly willing to throw away the whole concept of Holafly at this point, except for the fact that I paid $550 for an entire year of coverage, so I had to do something to figure out how to make it work. So once we got settled into the Airbnb, it was time to get back online with my favorite Holafly chatbot. And this time things were different. This time we figured out that there was a setting that I had wrong, that the Holafly eSIM did not have data roaming turned on deep in the menus. And I'm going to overlay on the screen how you get to the menu that you need to get to make sure data roaming is turned on. You want data roaming off, or everything off for your Tello line, but for your Holafly line or for whatever eSIM you're using, you need to make sure that data roaming is turned on. The bot walked me through how to find the setting, and so since then I turned data roaming on, and the Holafly eSIM has worked very well in Montevideo. There are still some areas where I have little coverage or slow coverage, but I think that's just the nature of the underlying cell service that I'm connecting to. I don't think it has anything to do with Holafly, and it does seem to be working the way it is supposed to work. We did check her Airalo eSIM to see if we'd blown through most of our 20 gigabytes of data over the first 10 days trying to get things to work, and I figured worst case scenario, it was a $58 lesson and I'd need to buy another 20 gigabyte plan for her. But the good news was when we checked, she'd only used 1 gigabyte out of 20 and she still has plenty. So that's what we're doing. It seems to be working. Hello, Rick from the future. It's about 3 weeks since I recorded the original video. We've now been in Montevideo for a week. We've been in Colonia del Sacramento for a day. We've been in Ushuaia for 10 days, and now we've been in Buenos Aires for about 10 days. And I wanted to update a couple of things about how the system is working. First, I wanted to make sure it was clear that we're not being sponsored by Tello or Holafly. I can't imagine they have any idea this is even happening. So this is just my own honest assessment of what we've done, why we did it, and how it is working. It has been working pretty well since I got the Holafly working in Montevideo. There are still some places where the signal simply isn't strong enough, which surprises me a little bit in big cities like Montevideo and Buenos Aires, where I simply can't get reliable data, or it's so slow that it's almost non-existent. So having the Translate app downloaded, having the maps downloaded so we can still navigate and translate when the data isn't working is hugely important. I have confirmed that the Tello line does work for Wi-Fi calling, and it does treat our international Holafly data as if it's Wi-Fi calling, so that even when we don't have Wi-Fi, if we do have a data connection, I can both make and receive phone calls. My wife's system is a little bit sketchier because, again, she can only get data out on the go if she's hotspotting off of me. That works pretty well most of the time. She does get disconnected sometimes. And again, if my data connection isn't strong enough or fast enough, then she obviously has no data connection. So we're really glad that we have the Airalo as a backup. We have not needed to use it in the last couple of weeks, but it sure feels good having that belt and suspenders and knowing that if the Holafly stops working, or if we're in an area where Holafly doesn't work well, that maybe Airalo is using a different cellular carrier, and so we might have better service with that than we do with Holafly in a location. So anyway, if I had it to do over again, would I do the same thing? Probably. I think the driver for me for Holafly was that it was a new plan and they were running a special, and so it made the most economic sense. So if I was starting over now, I would probably shop around with Cellular, Holafly, and Airalo, and any other well-known digital eSIM companies and see if they have a plan that makes sense economically. I would also continue to use Tello. We've been very happy with that. I did switch my plan to no data and 300 minutes because I think for some of the calling, I think the Wi-Fi calling, it does use minutes, so I've switched to a plan that gives me 300 minutes of calling. Not using very much because we typically use WhatsApp when we can, and only use the Tello line if WhatsApp isn't working or if someone calls us on it, for example. So that hasn't been an issue, and with 300 minutes and no data, it's $6 a month for the Tello lines. You will hear about VOIP services, voice over internet protocol. Things like Google Fi use that, and it is not actually a cellular phone number. It is a cell phone number, but it works over the internet. It uses data, not the cell carrier signals. It tends to work fine. There are some issues with Google Fi that I can talk about in a minute, but the most important issue is a lot of US financial institutions, banks, and credit cards that still require authentication through an SMS text will not send SMS texts to a VOIP phone number. They can tell on their end whether it is a real cell phone number or whether it is a VOIP number, and if they see that it is a VOIP number, they will not send you the text to do your authentication, which means you may not be able to log into your credit cards and your banking institutions, and that was obviously a non-starter for us. The other thing with Google Fi in particular is, my understanding is, it is meant not to be a full-time travel plan, and so if you are out of the country for more than 90 days, Google can send you a notice and cut you off so you can no longer make and receive phone calls or use their data, and that's obviously a problem for me because I will be out of the country more than 90 days at a time. So for those reasons, I didn't want to mess with any of the VOIP services. I wanted a real cell phone number with a real US cell carrier, which is what Tello provides me. I have had some issues trying to make calls even over Wi-Fi. When that happens, I've used WhatsApp, which if you haven't used it, you should download it immediately if you plan to travel. It is the message service used by most of the world. You can text with it, you can send photos with it, you can send videos with it, and you can make and receive phone calls with it. So that is what I've been using when the regular calling doesn't work, but the phone has worked, generally speaking, most of the time. And so I think that is basically the summary of what we are doing. Hopefully it will continue to work. And again, at $60 a month, I am happy to do that for at least the first year, and we'll try to potentially slim down my plans and make it a little more economical in the future. But at this point, at least, I'm really more in belt and suspenders mode, where I want a plan and a backup plan and a backup to that backup so that I ensure I don't lose coverage. And so I've got a telephone number, I've got my international data plan, my wife's international data plan. We've got WhatsApp to use. We've got text messaging. So we're making it work. And again, I can update it later. If you've made it this far in the video, I'm a brand new channel. I could really use some support. So if you've made it this far and you've gotten any value from this, please give me a like and please subscribe to the channel. I plan to be talking about some of these technology issues and just logistical issues of becoming a full-time traveler, but also talking about the places we're going and what we're seeing and whether we think these are places that we could live on at least a semi-permanent basis, maybe 2 to 6 months at a time. So hopefully you can come along for the ride, and please feel free to leave a comment and I will answer any questions that I can about the cell phone plans and the options. It really is quite a morass trying to sort this all out. So if you are in this boat, please reach out. If you've got other solutions that I haven't talked about, please share them. Again, this is a complicated subject and it changes pretty rapidly. So please let me know your thoughts, and if you've got other ideas or questions that might help others who may see this video. Thanks a lot.